Today's story is not about kings or knights, but about those whose names are unlikely to appear in the chronicles. An ordinary merchant, a person for whom every day looks just like the last. Together, we'll dive into the harsh, dirty, and hopeless everyday life of a medieval city and see the world through the eyes of a regular merchant. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. It's always interesting to see who's joined us. Now get comfortable. We're starting. You wake up before the sun because in your world, the sun is a luxury. Not for you the bright and gentle light of a windowed chamber or the warmth of a morning hearth. No, you wake to the particular darkness of a stone and wood house that smells faintly of mold, damp, and yesterday's sweat. Your bed is a sack filled with straw, which stabs your back with the kind of loyalty that only the poor ever know. Your thin blanket has holes, patched and repatched with rags, each patch a testament to the endless struggle of not having enough. You do not wake with a stretch and a smile. You wake shivering, jaw clenched so tight you fear your last few teeth will crumble into your mouth. You roll over, and the floor creaks ominously. You are a merchant, yes, but not the sort who wears velvet and gold chains. You are the sort who has to sleep with a dagger close at hand, just in case tonight is the night someone decides to steal your precious nothing. The air is cold and wet, not from any breeze of freedom, but because the roof leaks and the stones never dry. You hear the rats before you see them, little gods of survival, scrabbling for crumbs that you could not spare, even if you wanted. You have long since given up trying to drive them away. They are as much a part of your house as the rotting beams and the growing stains on the ceiling. You think about staying in bed just a moment longer, but there is no point. You have no soft mattress to lull you, and if you do not move quickly, someone else will. In your world, to be slow is to be hungry, and you are already hungry in the way that never quite goes away, even after a rare feast. You pull yourself upright, head spinning a little from sleep or hunger. Sometimes you cannot tell which is which. Your clothes from yesterday lie in a heap, not because you are untidy, but because you do not own enough clothing to have choices. You sniff the tunic and then the breeches, wincing. It is always a question: which smells worse, the clothes or the bed? You decide it is a tie and pull them on anyway. Your hands are cracked and raw. This is not the result of heroic labor, but of living with soap that is made from whatever fat could be found, sometimes even from the remains of rats. Your nails are black with old dirt. You used to try and scrub them clean, but now you see the futility. People in your quarter will only suspect you if your hands are clean. What do you have to hide? They will wonder if you look too fresh. Only the dead are clean. You shuffle to the door, careful not to disturb the slumbering shapes of your family, sprawled like corpses beneath their own pitiful blankets. You count them silently: your wife, two children, the old aunt who never stops coughing. Sometimes you wonder which one of them will be next to go. The last winter took the youngest, a baby girl. You try not to think about that. This is not a world for sentiment. The door sticks in its frame. The hinges groan as you force it open. The world outside is no less dark, no less cold. The street is silent, but not safe. You know the rules. Never trust the silence. Behind every door, behind every shutter, someone is listening. Someone is always waiting for you to make a mistake. You kneel in the mud because there is no paving here, and you wash your face with a little cold water from a wooden bucket. It smells faintly of rot, but you do not care. Water is water, and soap is a luxury for the rich. Your teeth ache as you splash your face. You wish for a moment that you could feel clean, truly clean, but you know that is a child's dream. You glance up at the sky, searching for a hint of dawn. The clouds are thick and low, promising rain, promising another day of damp and discomfort. You think, not for the first time, that the weather hates you. But then, what in this world does not? You drag yourself back inside. Your family stirs, coughing and muttering. You nod to your wife. No words are needed. She looks at you with the same mixture of resignation and exhaustion that you feel. You are both alive. For now, that is enough. You sit on the edge of the bed, planning your day. Already, you can feel the weight of it pressing down. There is work to do. There is always work to do. If you do not open your stall on time, someone else will claim your customers, few as they are. If you linger, the bread will go stale, the milk will sour, the rodents will have their feast. Instead of you, you do not waste time on dreams. Dreams are for the young, and you are old by the standards of this world, even if the numbers say you are only in your fourth decade. You force yourself to your feet, ignoring the protests of your knees and back. And so, in the darkness, surrounded by filth, hunger, and fear, your day begins. This is your life, not glorious, not heroic, but unendingly hard. You wonder, briefly, if today will be different. It never is. But you keep moving, because stopping is not an option. This is the first truth of your existence. In the medieval world, dawn does not bring hope. It simply brings another day to survive. You approach the table with the same enthusiasm you reserve for pulling out a rotten tooth. Breakfast is less of a meal and more of a ritual reminder that you live on the edge of starvation. You sit, careful not to knock over the wobbly bench. The table itself is scarred by knife marks, stains of unknown origin, and the graffiti of your own children, who, in moments of rare boredom, have scratched rude images into the wood. There is no spread, no aroma of roasting meats, no gentle warmth from a simmering pot. Instead, there is a hunk of bread so stale it could break teeth, a pitiful lump that you rationed from yesterday's leftovers. You break off a piece with effort, each fragment resisting your fingers. The crust is hard and sharp. You chew with caution, conscious of every loose tooth in your head. Dental care is a fantasy for the likes of you. If a tooth aches, it will soon fall out, or you will rip it from your jaw with a knife and some luck. Either way, breakfast is an ordeal. Sometimes, if fortune is with you, meaning if none of your creditors came by the previous day, you have a bit of gruel to go with your bread. Gruel, water, a hint of grain, sometimes flavored with the ghost of a vegetable if it happened to fall into the pot. You eye the bowl this morning. The liquid is gray, flecked with mysterious dark specks, possibly rat droppings, possibly not. You do not ask questions. You dip your bread, hoping to soften it and swallow as quickly as possible. Your children sit nearby. Their faces are pinched, hollow eyed. They are old enough to know not to beg for more. Your son, who should be outside playing, counts the bites. Your daughter keeps her eyes down, chewing slowly, as if prolonging the moment will make it more filling. Your wife divides the bread with mathematical precision. She always takes the smallest piece. You do not thank her. Gratitude is for special occasions, not for daily sacrifice. You remember when you first tried to save money for meat, dreaming of a plump chicken or a fat goose. Those dreams faded quickly, burned away by reality. Now you are grateful for bread without visible mold, for gruel that does not taste too strongly of mildew. Every so often, a neighbor will bring news of a merchant who found a weevil in his flour barrel. It is supposed to be a horror story, but secretly you envy him. Weevils, after all, are full of protein. There is no milk for you. The last of it went to the youngest child, a gesture of hope in a world designed to crush hope. You recall with irony the church sermons about sharing and charity. The priests never seem to miss a meal. You, on the other hand, know the true meaning of charity, sharing nothing because there is nothing to share. You sometimes trade with a local dairy woman. In better years, you might have exchanged cloth or even coins for a small jug of milk or a knob of cheese. Now you barter with promises and good intentions. She is nearly as poor as you. Yesterday, you gave her a candle stub. Today, she gives you a look that says, I will remember this debt. You add it to the tally in your mind, a growing mountain of what you owe and what you are owed. You look down at your hands. Cracked, swollen knuckles, skin as rough as bark. You can still remember a time when you thought the calluses would fade. Now, they are as much a part of you as your bones. Every cut and scrape is a warning. Infection is never far away. You have seen neighbors lose fingers, arms, even their lives, all for want of a clean bandage. You dunk your bread in the gruel, hoping the heat will kill whatever lives within. As you eat, you think about the food you sell. You do not eat it, of course. The bread you offer in your stall is for customers, at least those who can pay. You know better than anyone what goes into it. Sawdust sometimes, if the miller is feeling greedy. Old flour mixed with new, the color never quite right. The city's food inspectors are easily bribed, and besides, everyone knows that bread is bread, even if it is half wood. Your customers rarely complain. They are as hungry as you. You hear a commotion outside, a cart creaking, someone cursing about prices. The world is waking up. Somewhere, a cock crows, a sound that is supposed to signal the start of a hopeful new day, but you know better. It is just a reminder that time is passing, that hunger will return again soon. Your wife wipes the table with a dirty rag, chasing crumbs into her palm. Nothing is wasted. The children lick their fingers, searching for any hint of flavor. You stand, the bread in your stomach already forgotten, replaced by the anxiety of the day to come. You think about all the tasks ahead, opening the shop, haggling with customers, keeping an eye on thieves, fending off creditors. You remind yourself, again, that to live is to endure. Breakfast is over. It never really began. You are not full, but you are not empty enough to fall down. Yet, that is the best you can hope for. You mutter a silent thanks to whatever saint watches over merchants. You hope they are listening, though deep down you know the saints are busy elsewhere. Outside, the day is still gray, still cold, still unwelcoming. You square your shoulders, glance at your family, and prepare to face the world again. After all, hunger is just another part of life here, unavoidable, unremarkable, and entirely unending. There are no official meetings in your house, no ceremonies or rituals, only a tired, necessary council held each morning over the remnants of your meager breakfast. You might imagine, if you were ever so bold, that you are the head of a noble council, doling out duties and honors. But here, there are no honors. There are only burdens, and not enough shoulders to carry them. You look at your family, hunched and gray in the dawn, and you see not hope, not promise, but a collection of mouths and worries. Your wife's face is already drawn into the familiar lines of calculation and concern. She is not waiting for your leadership. She is already halfway through the mental lists, weighing who is strong enough for work, who is weak enough to keep hidden from notice, who is a risk in the street. Your oldest son, barely into his second decade, watches you with the resigned stare of someone who has seen too much disappointment. Your daughter avoids your gaze, already knowing that today she will be asked to do too much, as always. There is never any question of rest. The council is not about fairness or even about survival in the grand sense. It is about today. Who will be sent to the market where the crowd is thick and thieves are thicker? Who will help your wife with the endless chores, hauling water from the communal well, sweeping filth from the doorstep, chasing off rats that grow bolder by the day? Who will stay home to watch over the old aunt whose cough now rattles through the night like a bad omen? Today, It is your son's turn to go with you to the market. He tries not to let his fear show, but you see the way he clenches his hands, his knuckles white against the splintered wood of the table. The market is no place for children, but you have no choice. The city guards look the other way if a child disappears. Who will remember another skinny boy lost among the throngs? Who will come looking? Certainly not the city officials, who count only taxes and not tears. Your daughter will stay home, help your wife keep house. She is nimble with her fingers, quick with a broom, sharp eyed enough to spot the early signs of sickness: red cheeks, a hot forehead, the listlessness that means another fever is coming. You think about keeping her home every day, away from the dangers of the street, but that is another luxury you cannot afford. If she were a boy, you would have already apprenticed her to some gruff, miserly craftsman, praying he would not beat her too badly. But she is a girl, and the world is not kind to girls. Your wife divides what little food remains, wraps it in old cloth. She packs a bit for you and your son, enough to keep you upright, if not full. You note the way she glances at your aunt, still sleeping in her corner, thin shoulders twitching with each cough. The old woman has survived plagues and famines, wars and riots, but you sense her time is drawing to a close. It is a small, selfish relief, one less mouth to feed. And yet, when she finally goes, there will be one less memory, one less history, one less shield against the cold emptiness of your own past. The council is over in moments, decided not by votes or voices, but by necessity and fatigue. You distribute tasks with a nod, a glance, a grunt. Your wife wraps her shawl tighter, preparing to face another day of drudgery. Your daughter ties her hair back, eyes narrowed in concentration. Your son stares at his feet, unwilling to meet your gaze. You want to tell him that he is brave, that you are proud, that he will do well. But words are scarce here, saved for barter and bargaining, not wasted on comfort. Sometimes, on mornings when the sky is a little lighter and your stomach a little fuller, you remember stories from your own childhood, tales your mother told you about princes and princesses, of fortunes won and lost, of brave knights and clever merchants who tricked fate and came out richer. Those stories are gone now, as distant as the stars behind the clouds. You are no prince, no clever hero, just a merchant who counts every coin twice and still ends up short. You think about the dangers of the day ahead. The market is a battleground, not just of goods and gold, but of survival itself. Disease lingers in every breath. Thieves stalk every alley. You have seen men stabbed over a handful of beans, women trampled for a loaf of bread. No one is safe, least of all the honest. But you have no choice. The family council is not about hope or possibility. It is a daily triage, a calculation of risk and need, repeated endlessly. As you gather your meager wares and prepare to leave, your wife presses a lucky charm into your hand, a scrap of cloth, a twist of twine, a token that might once have belonged to someone better off. You almost laugh at the futility of it, but you keep it anyway. You are not superstitious, you tell yourself, but you have seen enough to know that in this world, luck is as real as hunger. You step out into the street with your son, shoulders hunched against the cold. The rest of the family watches from the doorway, faces shadowed with worry and resignation. You do not wave goodbye. You do not want to tempt fate by pretending there will be a return. You simply walk, each step an act of defiance against the endless, grinding weight of survival. This is the real counsel, a silent, grim agreement that today you will do whatever it takes to keep going. Because in the medieval world, every day is another trial. The only certainty is that the struggle never ends. You arrive at your merchant stall just as the gray light of morning seeps through the clouds, giving everything the washed out color of an old shroud. Your stall, such as it is, occupies a narrow patch of muddy ground wedged between a tanner's stand, always reeking of rot and old urine, and the charred remains of what used to be a cooper's shop, now a home for rats and desperate dogs. Your fortress consists of a battered wooden table, a patched canvas awning that drips water even when it does not rain, and a low wall of crates stacked to keep out the wind, or at least slow it down. It is a fortress only if you compare it to standing naked in the gutter. You set out your wares with the kind of care that only desperation can teach. Each loaf of bread, each twist of dried fish, each worn scrap of fabric is precious, worth more in hope than in gold. You count and recount your inventory, muttering the numbers under your breath, knowing that every crumb lost to a greedy customer, every button pilfered by a swift child's hand, is a tiny step closer to hunger tonight. The city's rules say merchants must display their goods openly, but you have long since learned to keep the best items hidden, tucked in under the table or inside your coat, waiting for a wealthier customer or a moment of real need. Your son helps, eyes darting nervously between the passing feet and the occasional growl from the tanner next door. He tries to mimic your careful movements, but he is too quick, too eager, not yet learned in the art of slow, suspicious selling. You remind him, quietly, to never turn his back, never leave the coin pouch unguarded, never trust a smiling face. The market is no place for innocence. It will strip that away faster than winter wind strips the flesh from your hands. As the market fills, your stall becomes a strange kind of prison. You cannot leave, not even for a moment, unless you are willing to return and find everything gone. Your goods, your crate, sometimes even the shoes you left under the table. The other merchants are no safer than the crowd. They nod to you, tight lipped, sharing a silent camaraderie that is built on mutual misery rather than trust. You watch each other, not out of friendship, but because everyone knows that when the guards arrive for their inspection, it is safer to stand together. Safety in numbers, even if the numbers are all afraid. You hunch behind your table as the hours crawl by. The air never seems to warm, and the smell of the tanner's work seeps into your skin. Customers drift past, some pausing to finger your wares, most shaking their heads at the prices as if you were robbing them. You resist the urge to tell them what things really cost, how many sleepless nights, how many blisters, how many debts gone unpaid. It would not matter. In their eyes, you are still a merchant, and merchants are never to be trusted. You remember a story from your own childhood, told by a neighbor who claimed to have seen a king pass through the city. A king, he would say, eyes wide. He walked among the merchants, spoke to them like they were real people. You smile grimly at the thought. Kings do not come to places like this. If they did, you suspect, they would pass by with their noses covered, disgusted by the sight and smell of so much honest poverty. The guards arrive before midday. Their armor is dented and smeared with old blood, their eyes red rimmed with boredom or drink. They swagger from stall to stall, barking orders, snatching samples of bread and fruit, reminding everyone who really owns the market. You hand over a crust of bread, watch it vanish into a greedy mouth, and offer your most respectful bow. There is nothing to be gained by protest. You know the price of defiance, and you cannot afford it. Your son stares at the ground, fists clenched. You wish you could teach him how to be invisible. As the day drags on, the customers grow meaner, the haggling more desperate. Everyone is poor, everyone is hungry, and you are all locked in a competition to see who can lose the least. Sometimes a wealthy matron will appear, trailing the scent of perfume and disdain. She picks through your goods with gloved fingers, asking questions that sting more than the cold. Is this the best you have? Why is your bread so dry? You smile, mouth tight, and agree to whatever price she offers, knowing it is too little. When she leaves, your son glares after her, but you just count the coins and whisper, "It is enough for today." Your stall offers no comfort, no safety. It is both your means of survival and the weight that keeps you tethered to this miserable existence. You dare not leave it for fear of losing everything, but you cannot rest while you are here. Every sound is a threat, every shadow a possible thief. Sometimes, when the crowd thins and the wind rattles the canvas, you imagine a different life, a life where you are not chained to a table in the mud, where your hands are clean and your back does not ache. But the fantasy fades quickly, driven away by the shouts of a neighbor fighting off a would-be thief, by the screech of a hungry gull, by the knowledge that you will be here again tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. The sun, when it finally appears, is weak and pale, offering little warmth and less hope. You watch the light creep across the market, painting everything in dull gold. For a moment, your stall really does look like a fortress, glowing in the morning haze. But you know better. It is just a table in the mud, a fragile barrier against a world that wants to take everything from you. When the sun starts to slip again behind the rooftops, you know you have survived another day in your prison. You pack your goods, count your losses, and gather your son close. You do not speak as you walk home. Words are wasted on dreams, and all you have left are the heavy truths of your world. Your stall is your fortress. Your stall is your prison. And tomorrow it will be both again. You know the market's rhythm as well as you know the creaks in your own bones. The first customers of the day arrive before the sun has truly risen, their shadows stretching long and thin across the broken cobblestones. They come in silence, shoulders hunched, faces grim, eyes already narrowed with suspicion. You have learned never to greet them with cheer. Forced smiles only make them wary. Instead, you nod, hands visible, as if you have nothing to hide. It is an old game, everyone pretending there is trust, everyone knowing there is none. The first to approach is a woman you have seen every morning for as long as you have had this stall. Her cloak is patched in 10 places, her hair tied back with string, her eyes darting from your goods to your hands and back again. She does not speak, merely grunts and lifts a loaf of bread as if she expects it to bite her. You watch her fingers, knowing she will check for softness, for warmth, for the faintest sign of mold. If she finds any, she will curse you in a voice loud enough for all to hear. You know how quickly a bad word can spread. Reputation is fragile, and trust even more so. She turns the loaf over, squeezes it, frowns. You wonder if she is truly inspecting the bread or simply reminding you that she holds the power this morning. Her eyes meet yours, cold and bright as river ice. You hold your tongue, waiting. Finally, she grunts again and drops a coin onto your table. You check it, of course, a bent silver penny, thin and worn. The city's money changers would refuse it, but you cannot. You slide it into your pouch, careful to keep your disappointment hidden. The transaction is finished, but the suspicion lingers between you, a gray fog neither of you can dispel. The next customer is a man with a limp and a nose bent from too many fights. He eyes your salted fish with hunger and resentment. You know his type, never satisfied, always looking for a reason to accuse you of cheating him. He jabs a finger at a scrawny herring. This one's smaller than yesterday's. Trying to cheat me, are you? He sneers. You sigh inwardly and explain, as you have explained 1,000 times, that the catch was poor, the fish smaller, the salt dearer. Your words mean nothing. He only hears what he wants. Still, he drops his coin, 2 copper pennies, both dulled by time, into your palm and shoves the fish into his coat. He lingers, scanning your wares as if expecting to find something hidden, something forbidden. You have nothing to hide, of course, but you check your pockets anyway. You have learned to mistrust even your own hands. When he finally limps away, you exhale, shoulders sagging in relief. You know he will be back tomorrow or the next day with new complaints and new suspicions. It is a ritual, as much a part of the market as the mud and the crows. A pair of children approach your stall next, eyes wide, mouths tight with hunger. They do not speak, only stare at the bread, the apples, the small heap of beans. You know they have no money, only hope. You glance at your son, and he shrugs, helpless. You shake your head at the children, not unkindly, but firmly. You cannot afford charity. The world is full of hungry mouths, and you have your own to feed. The children linger for a moment, then slip away, swallowed by the crowd. You watch them go, your heart heavy, your resolve a little lighter. A woman you have never seen before appears at your table, face shrouded by a hood. She speaks quickly, voice low, asking for flour, for cheese, for anything fresh. You offer what you have, careful not to show too much eagerness. Strangers in the market are always a cause for concern. Is she a thief, a spy, a member of some rival guild? You do not ask. She pays with coins that are clean, almost too clean, and leaves without looking back. You add her money to your pouch, marking her face in your memory, just in case. You check your wares constantly. It is not only thieves you fear, but cheats, customers who swap your bread for a smaller loaf, who slip spoiled goods into your baskets, who distract you with questions while their companions help themselves. You have seen every trick, and still you fall for some. The losses are small, but they add up, a slow leak that drains your hope as surely as it empties your purse. You keep a tally in your head: who owes you, who cheats you, who can be trusted for a day or two. Trust is a currency here, always in short supply, always devalued by suspicion. You cannot afford to forget a face or a debt. A merchant who trusts too easily will not last long in this market. As the morning wears on, the crowd thickens, the noise rising to a dull roar. You catch snippets of gossip, rumors of plague in the next town, news of a new tax, the latest scandal at the bishop's court. None of it matters to you, not really. All you care about is keeping your table intact, your goods unsullied, your coin purse safe. You have learned to watch everyone, trust no one, and always expect the worst. You glance at your son. He watches the crowd, eyes sharp, posture tense. He is learning the lessons of suspicion, the ones you never wanted to teach but could not withhold. You wish you could give him something better, an easier world, a kinder life. But wishes are for children, and childhood is a luxury you cannot afford. The sun rises higher, casting harsh shadows across your stall. The first customers are gone, replaced by the noisy, demanding throng of midday. But their suspicions linger, seeping into the wood of your table, the fabric of your awning, the marrow of your bones. In the medieval market, trust is a myth and every sale is a battle. You count your coins, check your wares, and steel yourself for the long, hard day ahead. The first customers have left you with little but suspicion and the knowledge that you will do it all again tomorrow. You are counting coins, a pointless exercise, but it gives you something to do with your trembling fingers when you notice the familiar silhouette lumbering through the market crowd. You recognize him instantly, as every merchant does, the tax collector, the city's official leech, dragging his feet with the lazy arrogance of a man who has never feared hunger. He is broad and sweating even in the cold, dressed in layers of thick cloth dyed the shade of old bruises. His belt sags with purses not his own. You cannot decide whether you hate him more for what he takes or for how he smiles while taking it. You do not pretend you are special. He does not either. You are simply the next in line. He pauses at the stall beside you, barking questions at the potter, fingering every piece of crockery, testing for cracks, but really weighing what can be claimed as tax in kind if the money is not enough. The potter's lips move in silent curses. You know how the scene will play out. A few pennies offered, a threat of fines, a piece of pottery snatched for evidence. The collector moves on, his pocket heavier, the potter's heart lighter, by one more hope at least. Now he stands before you, a painted grin splitting his pockmarked face. He does not greet you by name, though you know he remembers. To greet would be to admit you are human, not just a walking bag of copper. He glances at your wares, and immediately, miraculously, they seem to him more valuable than you have ever dreamed. Busy day, friend, he says, as if he has ever been your friend. Good to see honest work rewarded. The lie is as stale as last week's bread, but you nod. It is easier. You offer the agreed sum, the official tax, the one written on the scroll in the town hall, a sum which, by the laws of the city, should be enough to guarantee your right to sell here. He does not even touch it. He sighs and looks around with theatrical concern. There have been complaints, he says, his voice lowering. A merchant was robbed last night. Another found his goods spoiled. You know how it is. Dangerous times. Protection is expensive. Maybe you should consider increasing your contribution for the sake of your family. You understand. You understand. The contribution is never the same twice. It rises with your profits, with the mood of the day, with the thickness of his purse. It rises with your fear. He names a sum that you know will leave you hungry tonight. You consider arguing, but the guards who trail him are leaning in, hands on sword hilts, faces empty of pity. Their boots are clean. Yours will never be. You do not argue, you pay. He counts the coins twice, 3 times, just to humiliate you, and slips them into his belt. He is not finished. He selects a loaf of bread and a twist of dried apples from your table. Quality goods, he says, as if complimenting you, as if this is not theft. He tucks them into his sack. You have heard stories. tax collectors who return later in the night to collect from the houses of those who resist. You do not plan to be one of those stories. Your son's eyes are dark with fury, but you grip his shoulder and shake your head. Let it go. He is still learning the price of defiance, and you would spare him the full cost if you can. The collector leans close, his breath foul with garlic and victory. You do good work, he whispers, and you shudder. You do not want his praise. The collector moves on, a parade of suffering in his wake. The butcher it gives up a slab of fat. The cobbler surrenders a pair of shoes. At the edge of the market, a peddler who cannot pay is hauled away by the guards, shouting that he has nothing left to give. No one intervenes. The market watches, heads down, eyes averted. Tomorrow it could be any one of you. Today it is not. You try to settle your hands, which shake with a rage that never quite boils over. There is no room for anger here. Anger does not fill bellies or pay debts. You rearrange your goods, each gap a reminder of what has been taken. You do not bother to tally what you have lost. There is no point. The rules are simple: pay or lose everything. No one ever explains where the money goes, but you know it does not return to you. The city grows richer, its walls higher, its gates stronger, and you, the merchant, the mule, the eternal payer, grow leaner and colder with every passing year. It is not just the official tax. There are endless smaller hands, each reaching out for their due. The city guard expects gifts to look the other way when you sell after hours. The guild demands fees, even if you are not a member. The churchman stops by to collect for the poor, which is to say, for himself. The list is long, and your patience short. You pay each in turn, and wonder who will be left to take when you have nothing left to give. Sometimes you dream of refusing, of slamming your fist on the table, shouting that you have paid enough. You picture the tax collector's face, startled, then angry, then gone. In your dream, the other merchants rally to your side. Together, you drive the thieves from the market. But you always wake before the ending, heart pounding, mouth dry. You know what would really happen. Your stall smashed, your goods trampled, your family left shivering in the gutter. You glance at your son. He has seen too much already. He does not ask why you bow your head and hand over what little you have. One day, you hope, he will leave this market, this life, but not today. Today you endure. Today you pay. And tonight, as you lie in your bed of straw, stomach empty, you will count your losses and wonder how much more you can give before you, too, have nothing left to take. The guards never walk, they swagger. Their presence stains the market, their boots stamping out any fragile sense of safety you may have mustered. You hear them before you see them. The jangle of mail, the dull thunk of wooden cudgels on hips, the low laughter that means someone else is about to have a bad day. You do not bother to make eye contact. To look is to invite attention, and attention is a luxury you can never afford. It is a well known fact. The guards are supposed to protect you. They are, in theory, your shield against thieves, rioters, and wandering packs of hungry dogs. In practice, they are just another gang, only this one carries city badges and the right to break your nose in the service of the crown. Their protection comes at a price, and the price is rarely clear until it is too late. You have learned to fear their shadow more than any cut purse. Today, the guards are in a mood. You know what that means. Some petty lord's son got drunk last night and broke a window, so now someone must be punished. Justice, medieval style, is best served on those least able to pay. They move through the crowd like wolves, scattering street children and pushing aside old women. You see them stop at the tanner's stall, finger his goods, and leave with a free strip of leather. The tanner bows, not quite hiding his hatred. You do the same, keeping your eyes low. Good morning, merchant, one of the guards says as he stops at your table. His voice is honey and gravel, a blend of insincere politeness and open threat. He looks over your goods, his hand resting on his sword. You know that gesture. It means, I could ruin you for fun. He picks up a piece of dried fish, sniffs it, then grins. Payment for services rendered, he says. He does not specify what service. Maybe he means keeping thieves at bay. Maybe he means not beating your son for loitering. You nod and let him take the fish. To refuse is unthinkable. His companion is younger, meaner. He leans across your table and flicks at your bread with a dirty fingernail. Looks dry. Must be from yesterday. He smirks, waiting for you to protest. You do not. Any sign of defiance, even an annoyed twitch of your mouth, is an invitation for humiliation. He glances at your son, who looks away. You are grateful for your son's silence, but it twists your gut all the same. You want to teach him pride, but pride gets you a boot to the ribs, or worse. The guards like to test you, to remind you that laws are for the weak and the rich, and that you are neither. They sometimes invent rules on the spot. A new fee for setting up your stall too close to the main street, a fine for obstructing traffic, an accusation of selling short weights. You have seen them drag merchants away for nothing more than a dirty look. Those merchants rarely come back, and if they do, it is with fewer teeth and lighter purses. Today, your turn is brief. A nod, a few muttered words, a piece of bread vanished into a gauntlet. The guards move on, scanning for someone less practiced at submission. You watch them stride away, laughter echoing behind them, and you exhale for the first time in what feels like hours. The fear is always there, just beneath your skin. You cannot shake it, cannot reason with it. It lives with you, eats with you, lies beside you in bed. You hear stories, always stories, about merchants who resist, who complain to the city council, who try to form alliances and stand up for their rights. You never see those merchants in the market for long. There are whispers of accidents in the night, of sudden, unexplained fires, of family members who simply vanish. You tell yourself you are wise, not cowardly, for keeping your head down. Wisdom is the art of survival, and survival is all that remains. Sometimes the guards ask for more than food. They want information, rumors about your neighbors, whispers of who might be hiding an extra coin or a bit of contraband wool. You know better than to say anything. The wrong word can turn you from victim to accomplice. Silence is your safest ally. As the sun drags itself higher, you watch the guards circling the market. They are always there, just out of sight, just close enough to ruin you. Their armor catches the light, flashing like a warning. You see the way children avoid them, the way old men cross themselves when they pass. There is no trust, only fear, a thick, choking presence that never leaves. You imagine, for a fleeting moment, a world where the guards are what they pretend to be, protectors, keepers of peace, defenders of the weak. You imagine walking to your stall without the knot of dread in your gut. It is a fantasy, as distant as summer in the depths of February. In this world, the guards are not your friends. They are not even your enemies. They are just another hazard to be survived, another tax paid in fear and bread. By midday, you have given away more than you have sold. You count your coins with numb fingers, the sum smaller than yesterday's, smaller than you need. Your son watches you, his eyes dark and questioning. You shrug. It is the way of things, you say, not unkindly. You tell yourself you are teaching him to survive. You hope he never learns to accept it, as you have. When the market begins to empty and the shadows grow long, you watch the guards leave, their laughter fading into the alleys. Only then do you allow yourself to breathe. You survived another day. The fear remains, coiled and waiting for tomorrow. In the medieval world, it is not the enemies you see who destroy you. It is the ones who wear a smile and a badge, who promise safety with one hand and take with the other. You know this truth as surely as you know your own name. The guards are everywhere, and their price is never paid in full. There is a saying among merchants: your neighbor is your enemy until the collector arrives. You have never liked the saying, but you know its truth as well as you know the taste of stale bread. On the surface, the market is a battlefield of competing cries and outstretched hands. Every merchant, from the baker with his pale, floury loaves to the blacksmith's wife hawking dented pots, is a rival ready to undercut you by a single coin or a sweeter smile. Yet under the dirt and suspicion, you all share the same invisible shackles. Your stall is wedged between the tanner, whose goods reek enough to keep away even the most desperate thieves, and the old woman who sells onions and, on good days, the illusion of hope. The tanner's name is Gregor, but you call him Old Fox when he is not listening, and neighbor when he is. His leather is always just a shade too brittle. His scales always favor his side. Once, he tried to convince you that a handful of hard boiled hides was as valuable as a pound of fresh lard. You laughed and argued until your throats were raw, only to find yourselves both paying double taxes to the same collector an hour later. Competition in the market is as relentless as the winter wind. The arrival of a new merchant, a wide eyed youth with a tray of pies, or a mother with her ragged brood and a sack of walnuts brings a shiver through the stalls. There are only so many buyers, and each new face means fewer coins for the old. You have seen men ruin themselves trying to stay ahead. A cobbler who gave shoes away for less than the cost of leather, a grocer who mixed ash with his flour until the customers choked on every loaf. They left the market with empty hands and heavier debts. You learned from their mistakes. You do not trust anyone here, not even yourself. Still, you are not alone in your suffering. There are moments, brief and unspoken, when you and your rivals become allies, bound by the common enemy of the collector, the guard, the priest, or the simple cruelty of fate. When the taxman passes, you share nervous glances, silent encouragement, sometimes even a muttered joke at his expense. If the guards arrive in a foul mood, you and the tanner exchange quick signals. Watch my stall, I will watch yours. The old woman will slip your child a heel of bread if you are busy with a customer, and you will do the same for hers. Trust is rare, but desperation forges short lived alliances. It is not all camaraderie. Spite simmers beneath the surface, ready to boil over at the first sign of advantage. You remember the day the onion seller caught a thief, her own nephew, as it turned out, and how quickly she accused you of orchestrating the theft to ruin her trade. You protested, she cursed, the market watched and whispered. In the end, the boy was gone, the onions unsold, and your reputation a little grayer than before. No one apologized. No one ever does. Gossip is the true currency of the market. News travels faster than fever. If someone is selling spoiled fish, you will hear of it by midday, usually from a rival hoping to steer customers your way. If a merchant manages a windfall, a wealthy customer, a delivery of fresh fruit, everyone knows before the coin has left his palm. Secrets are rare, lies are common. Every friendly word may hide a barb. Sometimes you catch yourself wishing you could trust these people. You remember a festival long ago when you and the tanner and the onion seller shared a single bottle of bitter wine, laughing until your sides hurt, singing old songs as the stars blinked overhead. For a few short hours, you forgot the weight of debt and the bite of rivalry. The memory is both comfort and curse, proof that kindness is possible but never lasts. The worst days draw you all together. When the market floods with filth from the upper streets, when the city is gripped by rumors of plague, when the sky turns yellow with smoke from a distant fire, these are the moments when the walls between you crumble. You help each other drag goods out of the rising mud. You pool scraps for a sick child, pass warnings about which alleys to avoid. It is not friendship, not really, but something darker and more necessary. A pact made in desperation, broken as soon as the sun returns. And yet, in the brief space between disaster and routine, you feel a strange kinship with your rivals. You see the same exhaustion in their faces, the same hope worn thin by years of disappointment. You know that for all your bickering and suspicion, you are fighting the same losing battle against hunger, against fate, against a world that never meant for people like you to prosper. At the end of the day, you pack up your goods in silence. The tanner grunts a goodbye. The onion seller mutters something about tomorrow's weather. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. You each walk home alone, but you share the same road, the same mud on your boots, the same fear of what the morning will bring. Trade rivals? Yes, but in this world, where every victory is fleeting and every loss is heavy, you are all fellow victims, each one waiting for the next blow to fall. You like to imagine, on your rare optimistic mornings, that the greatest threat to your day is the weather, or perhaps a miserly customer. But by the time you have counted your coins and set your wares, reality creeps in like a cold wind under the market stalls. Thieves are everywhere. They come in all shapes and sizes, from ragged street urchins with clever fingers to grown men who swagger through the crowd, eyes searching for opportunity. You have developed the instincts of a hunted animal. Your eyes flick from one stranger to the next, cataloging suspicious hands, two casual stares, the shuffle of feet that hesitate a moment too long beside your table. Sometimes you think you can smell a thief, a hint of sweat and desperation, but most days they are invisible until the moment your purse grows lighter or your best loaf disappears without a trace. The youngest thieves are the boldest. They move in packs, a whirl of thin arms and bare feet. You watch as they circle the stalls, feigning interest in your neighbor's onions. Then suddenly one breaks off and lingers by your table, eyes wide with innocence. If you look at him, he looks away, biting his lip. If you look away, you can be sure something will vanish. One morning, you catch a boy no older than 8 trying to slip a hunk of cheese into his sleeve. You grab his wrist, not hard, just enough to show you are not blind. He looks at you with a mixture of terror and hunger. You sigh, snatch back the cheese, and let him run. He will try again elsewhere. You know he is not the worst of them. It is the older thieves who cause real harm. Some are organized, bands of men who steal in broad daylight, confident that the guards will turn a blind eye for a slice of the spoils. You have watched as one of your neighbors was knocked to the ground, his entire day's trade scooped up and gone before he could shout for help. You learn not to intervene. The last merchant who tried to fight back spent a week in the healer's care, his stall smashed and his savings gone. You count yourself lucky, that you still have all your fingers. There are subtler forms of theft, too. Swindlers who do not need speed, only cunning. They come dressed as respectable customers with too many questions and too little patience. One will haggle loudly, drawing your attention, while another swaps your good wares for spoiled goods brought from home. Some pay with counterfeit coins, lead painted gold, clipped silver, or even carved bits of bone when they are truly desperate. You have become an expert in the art of suspicion, tapping each coin against your teeth, weighing every purse. Not all thieves come from outside the market. Some are fellow merchants. You have seen more than one rival accidentally knock over a basket, quick hands sweeping up the choicest fruit before you can protest. Others offer to help watch your stall while you answer nature's call, only for you to return and find your stock suspiciously lighter. There is no point in complaining. Even if the guards listen, they are likely to side with whoever paid them last. You cannot forget the swindlers with words instead of hands. There are men who spin tales of woe so convincing you almost pity them until you realize you have agreed to a trade that leaves you with half rotten apples or a bolt of cloth riddled with moths. There are women who flirt, laugh, promise to pay tomorrow, and vanish forever into the winding streets. Even the church has its swindlers, priests who take your charity in the name of God, then remind you next week that salvation, like bread, is never truly paid for. You develop habits to protect yourself. You keep your best goods hidden under the table, bringing them out only for those you know or think you know. You fix a bell to your coin pouch, hoping to catch the would-be pickpocket. You never leave your stall unwatched, not even for a moment. Still, you know you will lose something every week, and every loss stings like a fresh wound. At home, you try to explain these dangers to your children. You teach them to guard their pockets, to never trust a stranger, to watch for the signs of deceit. You wish you could teach them something kinder, but you cannot afford to let them be naive. In this world, naivete is an invitation to ruin. Sometimes you envy the thieves. At least they do not pretend the world is fair. Their hunger is honest, their desperation worn openly. You, on the other hand, must pretend to trust, pretend to hope, pretend to believe that next week will be better. The market is a stage, and you are forced to play your part, even as you know the game is rigged. As dusk settles and you pack up your battered goods, you take inventory of what is left and what is lost. A loaf gone, a handful of beans vanished, a coin lighter than it should be. You count it up in your head, and then again, searching for some mistake, some forgotten pocket where hope might be hiding. There is none. You return home, pockets no heavier, hope no brighter, knowing that tomorrow the thieves and swindlers will return, and so will you, because in the medieval market there is only one certainty. If something can be taken, it will be. The only real question is how much you can lose before you have nothing left at all. If there is one certainty in your life as a merchant, it is filth. Dirt is the true lord of the medieval city, a ruler against whom no rebellion is possible. You wake in filth, you work in filth, you eat and sleep with filth as your closest companion. It finds you in the folds of your clothing, under your fingernails, in the cracks of your teeth, and deep within your lungs. There are days when you suspect that filth itself is what binds your bones together, holding you upright when food and hope have long since given out. The market is a carnival of squalor, and your stall squats right in the thick of it. The ground beneath your feet is never dry. It is a slick paste of mud, spilled beer, rotten fruit, stray feathers, and the kind of refuse you learn not to identify. Horses clatter by, their hooves stirring up new puddles of muck, each deposit left as a fresh insult to anyone hoping for cleanliness. On market days, the crowds churn the ground to a foul soup, and by midday your boots have grown twice as heavy, caked in layers of grime that will never wash out. You remember, perhaps, a time in childhood when you believed that dirt was something you could escape. Maybe you watched your mother scrub your face before church, or your father wash his hands in a bucket before meals. Now you know the truth. Cleaning is an act of temporary defiance, one that filth always wins. The city's gutters overflow with rainwater, and worse, running rivers of gray and brown that drag everything down to the river. Sometimes, on bad days, the market stinks so badly your eyes water and your stomach turns over. No one remarks on the smell. If you mention it, people will only laugh and call you a dreamer. The filth is not just beneath your feet, it is everywhere. You look at your wares and see it, a fine dust settling on bread, stray hairs woven into cheesecloth, an oily film on what passes for water. The air itself is thick, tasting of ash and smoke from the smithy's forge, sour beer from the tavern, and the sourer tang of unwashed bodies pressed close in the morning crush. Flies are your most loyal customers, never leaving, always buzzing and feasting, unbothered by taxes or guards. Every morning, you sweep your stall with a willow broom, flicking mud and straw and little else out of the way. It is a ritual without reward. The wind simply blows it back. Children run by, kicking up new waves of muck. Dogs nosing for scraps leave more than they take. The city sends a cart to collect waste only when someone important complains, and the important never set foot here. So the garbage piles up day after day until it becomes part of the scenery, as familiar as the church bell or the tax collector's scowl. You have learned to recognize the many varieties of filth: the sticky residue of spilled mead, the powdery gray ash from the baker's ovens, the greenish scum that appears after heavy rain. In summer, the heat bakes it into the cobbles, releasing a stench that clings to your hair and skin no matter how hard you scrub. In winter, the filth freezes into uneven ruts that trip you and tear your boots, the ice preserving yesterday's mess for weeks at a time. At home, you try to keep filth at bay, if only for the illusion of dignity. You wash your hands in cold water, scrape the mud from your soles before entering, shake out your clothes, and hope the lice will be merciful. Your wife does her best, sweeping the floor, boiling the linens when she can. It is never enough. The children track in fresh dirt, and even your dreams smell of smoke and manure. Filth is not only physical, it seeps into your dealings, your language, your very way of thinking. You see it in the sly glances between merchants, in the oily words of the guards, in the moral compromises you make just to get through the day. You tell yourself you are better than this, that you will rise above it. But every time you find a worm in your bread or a slug in your lettuce, you know you are lying to yourself. Filth is not something you live with, it is something you become. Sometimes you hear rumors from travelers, stories of distant cities where the streets are paved and the air smells of roses. You laugh and everyone laughs with you. Here, there is no escape. You could scrub yourself raw, but by morning, the grime will have returned, undiminished, undefeated. You try to keep a sense of humor, because what else is there? You joke with the tanner about whose stall smells worst. You pretend to sell fresh mud cakes to giggling children who are too young to know the difference. Laughter is another form of defiance, however brief. When the day ends and you trudge home through the narrow alleys, you know you will never truly leave the filth behind. It will follow you to bed, climb under your skin, curl up beside you in the darkness. Tomorrow, it will be waiting for you in the market, as inevitable as death and taxes. In the medieval world, you learn that filth is not just your environment, it is your heritage, your inheritance, your constant companion. And so you endure grimly, laughing at the mud, because it is the only thing in your life that is truly endless. If you ever start to believe you can adapt to the filth, the city will remind you of your error with a cough, a fever, or something worse. Disease is as constant as mud, as persistent as taxes, as intimate as the lice beneath your collar. It is the shadow you cannot outpace, the stalker you cannot escape. In the market, every sneeze is a warning, every cough a drumbeat of fate. You live with it, trade with it, sleep with it, and most likely you will die by it. It begins with a tickle in your throat, a flush to your cheeks, a heaviness in your limbs. You tell yourself it is nothing, a chill from last night's wind, perhaps, or the aftertaste of rotten onions. But deep down, you know the signs. You have seen too many neighbors vanish behind their shutters, the gossip swirling like the flies. She has the fever. He could not get out of bed this morning. They have hung a red cloth at the door. That last detail means you cross the street quickly, eyes averted, as if distance and ignorance could save you. Disease does not discriminate. It takes the old first, true, but the young are no safer. You have seen strong men stagger home from the market, eyes glassy, breath rattling. By morning, they are wrapped in sheets, and their wives are outside, bargaining with the undertaker, who himself is busier than any merchant. Children, especially, fall quickly. Your own daughter once spent a week feverish, sweating through rags, her skin so hot you were afraid to touch her. You prayed, you bribed the priest for a blessing, you made deals with saints and spirits. In the end, she survived, but now you watch her more closely. Every cough is a threat. You have learned the patterns. In winter, it is the coughs, the endless, racking coughs that leave your neighbors hollow eyed, their chests rumbling like carts on cobblestones. The winter cough, the healers call it, as if naming it makes it less deadly. In summer, the fevers come. You see men stagger through the market, their faces red, their voices thick and slow. Sometimes they drop where they stand, eyes staring at a sky that will never answer them. Bad air, people say, or the city is cursed this year. But you know it is just life, a wheel that grinds the poor to dust. Sometimes you hear of the plague, the Black Death, the one that sweeps entire towns from the map. You remember stories told in whispers of corpses piled like firewood, of priests blessing the dead by the dozen, of entire families disappearing overnight. The memory of those years lingers in every market stall, in every cautious glance, in every superstition. When the rumors start, you see the city change. People stop shaking hands. Customers pull their sleeves over their mouths. The rich retreat behind their gates, but the poor have nowhere to run. Medicine, for you, is a joke, a bitter one, but a joke all the same. The healer is a man with a sack of roots and a fondness for strong drink. His cures are as likely to kill as to save. If you have a coin, he will sell you a powder, a tincture, a promise. More often, you rely on old wives' tales, garlic worn around the neck, vinegar soaked rags, a prayer to Saint Roch or Saint Sebastian. Sometimes you think the prayers do more good than the remedies, if only because hope is harder to spoil than bread. You have seen disease make monsters of men. When a neighbor's child falls ill, the family withdraws, turning away visitors, shunning old friends. Rumors swirl. It was the new merchant. He brought sickness from another town. It was the water from the well. It was the baker's flour. He buys from the miller with the dead rats. Blame is contagious, and soon enough, someone is chased from the market, their stall left empty, their family gone. You watch and say nothing. Today it is them. Tomorrow it could be you. The city tries to fight disease sometimes. Officials send out edicts: burn your trash, clean your stalls. A city crier wanders the streets, shouting about hand washing and pure water. The rich obey behind their walls. The poor laugh and keep selling, because disease does not wait for permission and hunger never takes a holiday. There are rare moments when the market is quiet and you let yourself remember a world before disease was your shadow. You recall your mother's voice singing lullabies over a basin of steaming water, rubbing garlic on your chest. You remember the smell of vinegar, the scratch of a wool blanket, the weight of her hand on your forehead. Then the moment passes. Someone coughs nearby. You tighten your scarf and pray that today is not your turn. You live in a world where sickness is the rule, not the exception. You endure it as you endure the filth, the hunger, the fear. You watch your children for signs. You hide your own symptoms when you can. You do not dare complain because there is no mercy for the sick, only distance and silence. And so you wake each morning with a new ache, a new worry, and you go to market, hoping to survive the day. Disease is not a visitor, it is a permanent resident, an inevitable companion, and the only question is whether you can stay one step ahead of it, or if this is the week when it finally catches up. You like to tell yourself you are free. Sometimes, after a lucky sale, you even start to believe it. There is no chain around your neck, no iron shackle on your ankle, no overseer with a whip standing behind your stall. On the surface, you look like a man who makes his own choices, a merchant, a breadwinner, a citizen of the city. But that freedom is an illusion, thin as the morning fog, and twice as quick to disappear. In truth, your every step, your every deal, your very life depends on the whims and fancies of those who stand above you, invisible and untouchable. You are a pawn in a game where you cannot even see the board. There are rules, certainly, dozens of them, written and unwritten, changing with the season, the weather, or the mood of the magistrate. One day, the Lord decrees that market fees must be doubled to pay for a new fountain in the square. The next, the bishop announces that anyone caught selling meat on a holy day will be flogged, even if that meat was your family's only chance at supper. You learn not to ask why. You simply obey or you vanish. Sometimes you hear stories about merchants who dared to defy the powers that be. There was old Carl who complained too loudly about the tolls at the city gate. The next day, his stall was torn apart by the guards, his goods confiscated, his license revoked. No explanation, no recourse. He vanished, and everyone else learned to lower their voices. There was Marta the clothmaker, who sold fine wool on the wrong day to the wrong customer. A week later, her house burned down in the night. No one saw anything. You keep your eyes on your own problems. Even your place in the market is not truly yours. The space you rent for a handful of coins each week can be claimed at a moment's notice by a wealthier merchant, a minor noble, or simply someone with a friend in the right office. One morning, you arrive to find your stall moved, your crates stacked in a corner, your best spot given to a stranger. There is nothing to be done. You protest, and the market warden shrugs. The orders come from above, he says, and you are left with your pride in your mouth and your wares in the mud. The city council, in theory, is supposed to protect your rights. In practice, they protect their own interests and those of their friends. Once, you tried to petition for a new well on your street, a simple request, a matter of life and death. Your name was added to a list. Months later, nothing had changed except now you are watched more closely by the men in the city's livery. A troublemaker, they whisper, and you learn to keep your head down. Even inside your own home, freedom is a delicate thing. The taxman can enter at will, searching for hidden coins or forbidden goods. The priest can demand a tithe, with threats of eternal damnation if you refuse. The Lord's men can commandeer your last loaf for the garrison, citing necessity or the king's will. You sleep lightly, knowing a loud knock in the night means you may have to surrender everything or start again with nothing. Marriage, too, is a contract with invisible ink. You love your wife in your way, and she loves you, but the law is not written for either of you. If your Lord desires a new servant, your daughter can be taken for his kitchen. If the city needs labor for the walls, your son can be dragged off with barely a word. You are told it is for the common good. You know better. The common good is whatever keeps you quiet and hungry. There are moments when you dream of escape, running away to another town, starting fresh where no one knows your name. But each town has its own lord, its own bishop, its own rules and punishments. You have heard of men caught without papers, branded as vagabonds, whipped through the streets, their families scattered. You think sometimes that you are less free than the beggars at the city gates. At least they can walk away. You have debts, obligations, invisible lines that tether you to this patch of filth and struggle. Some nights, when the city is quiet and you dare to hope, you think about the world beyond the walls, the forests, the hills, the distant villages. Freedom, real freedom, seems to wait out there, away from the taxes, the tolls, the threats and demands. But you know those stories always end the same way. The woods are full of wolves, and the roads are full of robbers, and a man without the protection of a lord is fair game for anyone who cares to take his life or his coin. Safety, it seems, is just another form of captivity. You do not weep for your lost freedom. There is no time for that. You wake, you work, you obey. Your choices are not your own, but you cling to the little things, an extra crumb for your children, a laugh with a neighbor, a stolen moment of quiet before dawn. You call it freedom because the alternative is unthinkable. In the medieval city, your freedom belongs to others. You are free only until a more powerful man decides otherwise. And so you bow your head, pay your dues, and hope each day that you will be overlooked, at least until tomorrow, when someone else's whim will once again decide your fate. Debt is your true inheritance, more reliable than land, gold, or a family name. You are born into it, and unless some miracle plucks you from the mud, you will die with it or because of it. There is a bitter joke among merchants. My debts will outlive me, and perhaps they will have a better life. You laugh, but only to hide the gnawing fear that it is more prophecy than jest. It starts quietly, a handful of coins borrowed from a neighbor after a poor market day, a small favor from the baker when your bread does not sell. At first, you swear you will repay quickly, maybe even with a little extra. You keep track in your head, or, if you are especially careful, on a scrap of paper hidden from prying eyes. But then the next bad day comes, and the next. Soon you are borrowing to repay yesterday's loan, spinning a web so tangled that you sometimes wonder how you manage to rise each morning and not be trapped in it forever. Everyone owes, and everyone is owed. You owe the miller for last month's flour, the butcher for the scraps you took home just until business picks up. The tanner next to you owes the candle maker, and the candle maker owes you for a bolt of cloth. It would almost be funny, this closed circle of hunger and hope, if it were not so deadly serious. If anyone dares break the unspoken agreement, demanding payment too loudly or refusing to extend credit, the whole structure threatens to collapse. Yet collapse is always one misfortune away: a bad harvest, a lost shipment, a sudden tax, or a bout of fever that leaves you too weak to stand behind your stall. The worst debts are owed not to your neighbors, but to those who hold real power: the guilds, the city council, the lords whose faces you never see, except when they come to collect. They do not forgive or forget. Miss a payment, and you will find your stall seized, your house padlocked, your goods auctioned to cover what you owe. You have seen it happen more than once. The debtor's shame is matched only by the hunger that follows. Then there are the money lenders, sharks in fine wool cloaks, who wait at the edge of the market, smiles as sharp as their ledgers. Their terms are simple: pay back twice what you borrow, or pay with what you have. You have never dealt with them, not directly, but you have watched as others did. Men who thought they could outsmart the system, who believed their luck was about to change. They disappeared, or else returned broken, working someone else's stall for a pittance, their debt having devoured whatever pride they once had. You do not have a ledger, only memory. You count your debts every night, whispering the names and numbers as if in prayer: 3 coins to the miller, half a loaf to the baker, a promise to the guild. You count what is owed to you too, though those debts rarely return. When someone cannot pay, they give you a sad smile, a handful of dried beans, or sometimes nothing at all. You do not blame them. You know what it is to have empty pockets and a hungry child at home. Interest in your world is a kind of curse. The longer you wait, the more you owe. The market warden claims it is fair, a reward for patience, a penalty for delay. But it is more like rot spreading through your life, making each day a little harder than the last. Sometimes You fantasize about being debt free. You imagine buying fresh bread with real coins, not promises. You imagine sleeping without the weight of worry pressing down on your chest. The fantasy ends quickly, chased away by the memory of collectors and threats. Your children learn about debt before they learn to read. They hear you and your wife whispering at night, counting coins and favors. They see the way your hands shake when someone knocks at the door after dark. You do not want to pass on your burdens, but there is no way around it. Debt is as much a part of their inheritance as the color of their eyes or the sound of their laughter. Sometimes you hear stories of people who have escaped debt, merchants who struck gold, who found a patron, who married rich or left for another land. But these stories are as rare as blue roses. Most end in disappointment or worse. The more common tale is of a family driven from their home, forced to wander the roads as beggars, branded as failures by a world that pretends luck is the same as virtue. You tell yourself you are not beaten yet. You get up each day, you sell what you can, you make your payments, and you ask, quietly, humbly, for a little more time. Sometimes you even believe you will find a way out, that next season will be better, that fortune will finally remember your name. Until then, you live as everyone does, paying the price for yesterday's survival and borrowing against tomorrow's hope. In the medieval city, debt is not a mark of shame. It is simply the price of existence, the silent partner in every deal, every meal, every dream. You endure it because you have no other choice. And each night, as you whisper your debts to the darkness, you pray that you can keep paying a little longer, at least until tomorrow. You leave the market with empty hands and a heavier heart, but your day is not over. The city's shadows lengthen as you trudge through winding alleys toward home, boots squelching in the mud. The smells change, less of commerce and sweat, more of cooking fires and unwashed bodies. Children shriek and chase each other in the gloom, their laughter edged with hunger, while mothers shout them back with weary warnings. You recognize the faces that peer from doorways, the same faces every day, marked by exhaustion and silent calculation. You nod. Sometimes you force a thin smile, but your mind is already occupied by worries that will follow you into the night. Your family waits. The word waits is generous. They endure. Your wife is first to greet you, not with an embrace, but with a quick, anxious glance at your hands. Did you bring bread? Any leftover cheese? Did you sell enough to keep the creditors at bay? Or is tomorrow another day of desperate bargaining? She asks with her eyes, never with her lips. The children cluster near the table, their faces flushed from the heat of the fire, or perhaps fever. You notice your youngest is coughing again, a dry, persistent hack that scrapes at your nerves like a dull knife. Another sickness, perhaps, or just the chill from damp stone floors and threadbare blankets. Dinner is as much ritual as nourishment. Your wife doles out the day's meager spoils, slicing stale bread with the precision of a surgeon. She gives herself the smallest piece, eyes flicking to the children, daring anyone to protest. They do not. They have learned that silence is safer than complaint. Your son asks about the market. Did you see the juggler? Did anyone get caught stealing? Did you hear if the plague has reached the southern gate? His questions are not idle curiosity. He is already learning what matters and what must be endured. Your daughter is quieter, her eyes fixed on the crumbs left on her plate. She is old enough to see the tension in your hands, the lines deepening in your face. There are always more worries than food. Your wife speaks in code, careful not to alarm the children. The rent is due soon, she says. The landlord passed by today, looking for you. She does not add that he lingered too long, his gaze sweeping the room, or that she kept the best blanket over the cracks in the wall to hide the family's poverty. You listen, nodding, calculating how many coins remain in the pouch hidden beneath your mattress and how many debts you can delay before someone loses patience. The children bring their own burdens. Your eldest needs shoes. His toes poke from holes that widen with each step. The schoolmaster wants a fee for lessons, though everyone knows the lessons are mostly sermons about obedience and God's wrath. Your daughter's dress is patched beyond repair, and she flinches when you mention the market. She is old enough to catch the looks from strangers, old enough for you to wonder how much longer you can keep her safe from the interest of men with more power than mercy. There is little time for comfort. After dinner, you and your wife huddle in a corner, whispering plans. Can you trade an old pot for a scrap of meat? Can the children help with washing or mending to earn a coin? Should you ask the neighbors for help, knowing that favors are another kind of debt? Every suggestion leads to more questions, more calculations, and more doubt. Hope is rationed more strictly than bread. Your wife carries her own silent fears. She fears for the children most of all, worries about fevers that last too long, about coughs that become something worse, about bruises that do not fade. She fears the day the landlord grows tired of waiting and sends the city guards. She fears the neighbors' gossip, the sharp tongues of those who resent your small successes, as well as those who pity your losses. Sometimes she fears you will not come home at all, caught by thieves, arrested for a debt, struck down by illness in the street. You want to reassure her. You want to tell her things will improve, that tomorrow will bring luck, that you will find a way to keep the family safe and fed. But promises cost more than you can afford. You have learned to measure hope in whispers and glances, not in grand declarations. Instead, you sit together in the flickering light, shoulders touching, sharing warmth against the chill that creeps from the floor, from the walls, from the very air of your narrow home. When the children sleep, you count your coins, your debts, and your remaining crumbs. You check the door twice, listening for the heavy tread of boots, the crack of wood that signals another family's eviction. You listen for the sounds of illness, coughs in the night, restless turning, soft whimpers from your daughter's cot. You pray, if only out of habit, for another day's survival. Family is both your burden and your strength. Their hunger sharpens your desperation. Their laughter, rare as it is, keeps you upright when you would rather sink to your knees. You wish you could give them more than struggle. You wish you could give them safety or even just rest. But in the medieval city, rest is for the rich, and worry is the inheritance of the poor. As you drift towards sleep, you think not of dreams, but of lists, things to sell, debts to pay, repairs to make, illnesses to watch. Your family sleeps beside you, bundled together for warmth, and you know you will do it all again tomorrow, because there is no other choice. When the darkness presses close and the world feels especially small, you reach for meaning wherever you can find it. In the medieval city, superstition and religion flow together, thick as the mud in the gutters, clinging to every hope and fear. You do not have the luxury of pure belief or stubborn skepticism. You believe what you must, when you must, twisting prayers and charms together as if enough words and rituals could build a wall against all that waits in the night. You begin each morning with a sign of the cross, careful and quick, just in case the neighbors are watching. It is not faith so much as insurance, a gesture learned at your mother's knee. If you forget, you spend the rest of the day uneasy, waiting for a pot to fall, a thief to strike, a fever to start. Your children imitate you, copying every gesture, every hurried mutter at the sight of a crow or the sound of a bell. Your wife ties bits of red string to their wrists, protection against the evil eye, she says. The priest might scold her for superstition, but you notice he does not remove the charm she leaves in the offering box. Even holy men are careful, just in case. The church looms over your city, its bells marking time with a kind of heavy finality. You are expected to attend Mass, to bow your head, to donate from what you do not have. The priest preaches that suffering is a test, that poverty brings you closer to God, that charity is its own reward. You nod, of course. Out loud, you agree that the world's pain has a purpose. Privately, you wonder if the purpose is simply to keep you in your place while the priest eats well and sleeps warm. You confess your doubts sometimes, just to hear someone say you are forgiven. You pay for candles to burn at the altar, even when there is not enough wax to spare at home. It is never wise to appear less devout than your neighbor. Yet you do not rely on the priest alone. You have a private collection of rituals for luck and protection, inherited from parents and neighbors, changed and polished with each retelling. You hang sprigs of dried herbs over the door, say 3 words backwards when a magpie crosses your path, spit into the fire to keep sickness at bay. Some nights, your wife scatters salt in the corners or leaves a bowl of water by the window to catch wandering spirits. You tease her sometimes, but you help all the same. Better a foolish ritual than an angry ghost or a jealous saint. Superstition fills the gaps where religion falters. When a child falls ill, you pray to Saint Roch and Saint Sebastian, but you also wrap a chicken bone in cloth and bury it beneath the hearth. If business is slow, you slip a coin beneath the stall and never mention it aloud. The market itself is a shrine to these little beliefs. Ribbons tied to the well, coins dropped into the mud for luck, curses muttered at the moon when sales are poor. No one laughs, not really. The world is too unpredictable, too dangerous for pure logic. You watch your neighbors for signs: who crosses themselves before entering a house, who leaves bread for the beggars, who whistles at the moon or refuses to speak after sundown. Every act is both protection and accusation. If a fire breaks out or a child dies, suspicion swirls like smoke. Someone must be to blame: a witch, a heretic, a neighbor with a strange stare. You remember last winter when the tanner's wife was accused of hexing a newborn. The whole street watched her walk to the church for testing, silent and cold. She returned days later, thinner and quieter, her stall untouched for weeks. You wonder sometimes if she blamed herself or her neighbors. Even the city's rulers bow to fear and ritual. The magistrate carries a blessed relic. The guards mutter prayers before night patrol, and the Lord's own wife visits shrines in secret when her children are ill. The difference between highborn and lowborn is mostly in the size of the candles and the gold on the crosses. Everyone hopes for a miracle. Everyone fears a curse. Despite your doubts, there are moments when faith feels real: a sunrise after a storm, a fever that breaks just when you had given up hope, a stranger's unexpected kindness. You catch your breath and whisper a thank you, not sure to whom. You want to believe, because belief is a comfort, a weapon, a tool for surviving another day in a world that offers so little kindness. Still, there is a darkness beneath it all. When prayers go unanswered and omens pile up, you feel the weight of despair pressing on your chest. Is suffering really a test, or just the way things are? Is there a reason for your endless toil, or are you just a speck beneath an indifferent sky? You do not ask these questions aloud. You keep moving, keep muttering blessings and tying charms, because not to do so would feel like inviting disaster. And so, as another night falls, you kneel with your family, whispering prayers, making signs against evil, clutching at anything that might help you sleep. In the medieval city, superstition and religion are as necessary as bread and water. They are the scaffolding of hope, the only way to keep going when everything else seems meaningless. There is a special cruelty tonight in the medieval city. The filth and noise of the day fade, replaced by a silence that is never comforting, only tense, a stillness waiting to be shattered. You lie with your family on beds of straw, your bodies drawn close for warmth, but the darkness presses in, thick and full of possibilities. It is not a darkness that brings rest. It is a darkness that watches, waits, whispers. You close your eyes and try to sleep, but sleep is a battleground, and night is the enemy. You are always the last to drift off. Your wife's breath steadies. Your daughter fidgets and coughs. Your son's small feet press into your leg. Still, you lie awake, counting debts, rehearsing the next day's bargains, listening for the sounds that mean something is wrong. The city, at night, is a chorus of terrors, the distant bark of a dog, a scream cut short in some far off alley, the heavy tread of boots on cobblestones. You know every sound by heart. Each has a story, none of them comforting. The fear of thieves is constant, as real as the straw beneath you. Doors are locked, bars wedged against the frame, but locks are weak and thieves are clever. You keep a knife near your bed, not out of bravery, but necessity. You know men who have lost everything in the hours between dusk and dawn: a purse, a month's earnings, a child. You tell yourself you will hear them coming, that you are ready, but you know that is a lie. If they come, they will come quietly, or they will come so loudly that there is no time to fight. Sometimes you dream of the door splintering, of shadows moving in the firelight. You wake, sweating, unsure if the danger was real or imagined. Not all terrors walk on two legs. There are the rats, always the rats, scrabbling in the walls and gnawing at crumbs, at shoes, at the soft edges of your sleep. You have seen what they leave behind: droppings in the grain, bites on the youngest's toes, the empty eyed stares of kittens dead before morning. Your wife sets traps. You scatter ashes and salt, but the rats always return. You tell yourself they are only animals, but in the dark they seem more cunning, almost human. Sometimes it is the guards you fear most. Night is their domain, and they patrol it with the joyless authority of men who know that power is best exercised in the absence of witnesses. You have heard them dragging neighbors from their homes, heard the slap of truncheons on flesh, the cries that fade into silence. Perhaps a merchant fell behind on payments. Perhaps someone complained too loudly. Perhaps it was just a slow night. You do not ask. You do not open your door. You hold your breath until their voices fade. Then there are the less tangible horrors, the superstitions and memories that creep in with the night. You recall stories told by candlelight, witches riding the wind, restless spirits searching for vengeance, omens hiding in the call of an owl. You scoff at these tales in daylight, but in the dark, every creak and groan becomes a warning. Your wife murmurs a prayer. You press a charm under your pillow. You do not believe, not really, but you take no chances. In the medieval city, doubt is a privilege, and you cannot afford it. Worst of all is the fear for your family. You imagine the illnesses that come at night, the fevers that burn unseen, the breaths that falter. You reach out in the darkness to check your children, one by one, feeling for warmth, for the steady rise and fall of their chests. You remember neighbors who woke to silence, to cold limbs, to a grief that does not end with sunrise. You promise yourself you will do more, that you will find a way to protect them, but you know how little power you have. You drift in and out of restless sleep, waking at every sound, every movement. You dream of better days, meals without worry, a house without leaks, a night without fear. You dream of the past, before the weight of hunger and debt pressed so hard. More often, you dream of nothing at all, just blackness and the echo of your own heartbeat. When morning comes, it is not relief that greets you, but another kind of dread. The fears of the night do not disappear, they only change shape. The city stirs, the light seeps in, and you rise, sore and groggy, to face the same dangers in different clothes. You look at your family, sleeping or pretending to, and you wonder how many nights remain before one of your terrors becomes real. In the medieval city, night is not a time of peace. It is a test, a trial by darkness, endured in silence. You survive by hoping morning will come, by believing that another day will give you another chance, even if the only thing that changes is the shape of your fears. If you were foolish enough to think the city's rules and dangers were made by men, the weather would quickly correct you. The sky is a more powerful tyrant than any lord or bishop, unpredictable, unmoved by prayer, and entirely indifferent to the hopes of people like you. Your life, your trade, your future, all are dictated by the whims of sun, wind, rain, and frost. You wake to a gray dawn, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Your bones ache before you even roll from the straw. Your wife pulls the blanket tighter over the children, as if wool can keep out the damp that seeps through stone and skin. The city itself is quieter, more sullen, under the weight of a low sky. You think about your wares, bread that will turn to paste in the mist, dried fish that will sprout mold, bolts of cloth that reek of mildew before the noon bell rings. There is no profit in this weather, only loss and the weary shuffle of feet through puddles that never dry. Market day is a gamble in any season. A bright morning brings out the crowds, but also the pickpockets and the guards, keen to collect their share. Too much sun, and your goods spoil before you can sell them. The apples turn soft. The cheese sweats and draws flies. Too little sun, and no one comes to buy, too busy patching leaks in their own roofs or tending to sick livestock. You have no way to predict what the day will bring. You watch the clouds, consult your aching joints, mutter curses or prayers, and hope for mercy that rarely comes. Winter is the worst. The city becomes a tomb of ice and fog, the market a graveyard of hope. Your hands crack and bleed as you fumble with frozen coins. Your breath fogs in the air as you try to haggle through chattering teeth. The cold seeps into your bones, numbing both body and spirit. Fewer customers venture out, and those who do are even less inclined to part with their hard won coins. Your children grow thin, their cheeks are hollowing, their coughs growing deeper. Each winter, you wonder if everyone in your household will see the thaw. But spring is no guarantee of relief. The first rains flood the streets with more filth than you thought possible, washing refuse down from the wealthy quarters and leaving it at your door. Peddlers curse the mud, wagons break their wheels, and your shoes dissolve into strips of leather and string. Sometimes the river rises and the lower market is simply gone, swept away with all it carried, including more than one unlucky soul who slipped in the wrong place at the wrong time. Summer brings its own tyranny. Heat so thick it wilts the crops, dries up the wells, and fills the air with the stink of spoiled food. Plagues breed in the standing water left from spring. Your bread molds before it can be sold. The fish rot even on the salt, and the wine sours in its cask. You watch helplessly as your hard earned wares become nothing more than fodder for rats and flies. The people who do venture out in the summer sun move with sluggish desperation, seeking relief that never comes. You have no shelter from the weather. Yes. The city's walls do not keep out rain or wind, and your home is built to withstand little more than a casual breeze. You stuff rags in the cracks, lean spare boards against the leaks, and pray that the worst of the storm will pass you by. Sometimes it does, more often, it does not. You watch the sky with the wary eyes of a gambler, knowing that every new season is another spin of the wheel, another test of your endurance. You hear stories, always stories, of rich men who have cellars of dry wood and stores of salted meat, whose homes are tight against the elements, whose lives continue undisturbed from season to season. You wonder if those stories are true, or just another way the city mocks you with what you will never have. You do not have the luxury of dreaming about comfort. Survival is enough. Sometimes you find humor in the cruelty of the weather. You joke with your neighbors about the annual flood, the endless winter, the market that drowned in mud. Laughter is another shield, even if it is thin as the rags on your bed. There is a comfort in knowing you are not alone. Every merchant, every laborer, every soul in the lower city is at the mercy of the same indifferent sky. Yet, the tyranny of weather leaves its marks on more than just your goods and your body. It shapes your fears, your hopes, your very understanding of time. The years are counted in bad harvests, in storms, in freezing nights and blazing afternoons. You remember childhoods that ended with the first frost, marriages that broke under the weight of one too many failed springs. Your oldest memories are colored by the smell of wet earth, the ache of chilblains, the taste of rain in your mouth. In the end, you do not curse the weather. What would be the point? You curse your luck. You curse the lords and the taxmen and the thieves. But the sky is beyond your reach. You adapt. You endure. You wait for a better day. Sometimes you even convince yourself it will come. Until then, you tie your cloak tighter, wipe the mud from your wares, and keep your eyes on the clouds, because in the medieval city, the weather is both judge and executioner, and you are forever at its mercy. Old age is not measured by the number of winters you have seen, but by how heavily each season has weighed upon you. In the medieval city, you begin to age the day you can walk, and by your fourth decade, you are counted among the lucky old. When strangers guess your age, they usually aim high. They see the lines etched deep into your face, the way you stoop when you rise, the whiteness creeping into your hair. You must be 50, they say, perhaps to flatter. You know you have not yet seen your 40th year. Your body tells the truth better than your words ever could. Your back aches in the morning and never quite stops. Your knees crackle when you crouch. Your hands ache after the smallest task. A cough lingers for weeks. A cut, once a minor nuisance, now swells and festers, a reminder of how little stands between you and the grave. You notice how many of your teeth are missing, how hard it is to see in the dark, how long it takes to recover from a fever. You tell yourself these are inconveniences, but you know better. They are warnings. Every morning that you manage to rise and walk to market is counted as a small victory. You remember your parents' old age, how brief it was. Your father died before his beard turned gray, struck down by an infection after a simple fall. Your mother's hair thinned to wisps before she was carried off by fever. You recall neighbors who were old at 30, bent double, their faces gaunt and hollow eyed, already halfway gone. In your world, to live past childhood is a triumph. To live past 30 is to outpace the odds. Yet what awaits is not reward, but decline. Work does not ease as you age, it only becomes heavier. You can no longer lift the crates you once carried without a thought. Your children notice when you grunt or pause too long, but you try to hide your weakness. Pride is a poor medicine, but sometimes it is all you have left. You watch the young apprentices running through the market, shouting and laughing, their voices bright with a kind of hope you barely remember. You envy their energy, but you do not begrudge it. You know they will lose it soon enough. Your family sees the signs, though they rarely speak of them. Your wife wraps a scarf around your shoulders when the wind howls. Your daughter takes over more chores without complaint. Your son grows taller, his voice deeper, and you wonder how long it will be before he is the one who must bear the weight of your debts. You try to teach him what you know, to prepare him for the tricks and cruelties of the world, but you see in his eyes the impatience of youth. He will learn soon enough. Everyone does. There are no gentle retirements here, no pensions, no peaceful days spent in contemplation or leisure. When your body fails, your usefulness ends, and the world does not hesitate to move on. You have seen men left begging at the market's edge, their families scattered or gone, their names quickly forgotten. You fear that fate more than death itself, the slow unraveling of purpose, the humiliation of dependence, the loss of dignity in a world that has little enough to spare. You find yourself thinking more often of death, not as a horror, but as an inevitability, a relief from pain and hunger. You visit the church more often, not for comfort, but to make your peace, to ensure your name will be remembered in at least one place. You pay the priest what you can for prayers, even though you know they are only words. The graveyard is full of those who hoped for more. Despite all this, you are not bitter. Or if you are, the bitterness is old and familiar, a taste you have learned to live with. You make your jokes about growing old, trading aches and pains like coins. You laugh with your wife about your missing teeth, your stooped back, your thinning hair. You find small pleasures, a moment of warmth in the sun, a story well told, the sight of your children wrestling in the dirt as if there is nothing to fear. Some days you allow yourself to dream of growing truly old, of seeing grandchildren play, of being cared for in your final days. But those dreams are for another world, another kind of life. Here, you measure your future in seasons, in debts repaid and meals survived, in days when the pain is less sharp than usual. As you close your stall for the night, your joints stiff, your breath short, you look around at your fellow merchants and see the same story in their faces. All of you, old before your time, carrying on because there is no other way. The city does not mourn its old, it barely notices them. You endure because you must, and you hope, quietly, stubbornly, that tomorrow you will rise again, ready to sell, to barter, to struggle, to survive. Even as old age creeps closer, faster, and more inevitable with each passing day. In the medieval city, old age is not a crown of wisdom, but a quiet defeat, an exhaustion of body and hope that settles in long before the grave. And yet, you go on, because what else is there to do? Sometimes, in the rare hush between night and dawn, you allow yourself the dangerous luxury of dreaming, not the exhausted, feverish dreams that slip through your sleep, chases through alleys, the loss of a child, a shadow at the door, but the waking kind, woven from scraps of longing and memory. You stare at the cracked beams above your bed and imagine a life that could have been yours if fate or God or the weather had been kinder. In your dreams, you are a wealthy merchant with a shop at the center of the city, wide windows spilling lamplight onto swept stone. Your shelves are always full, the bread is soft, the cheese unspoiled, the wine sweet and endless. Customers jostle for your attention, their purses heavy, their faces friendly. No one haggles, no one complains about the price. The taxman enters and bows. The city guards tip their caps, and the guildmaster shakes your hand and calls you friend. You imagine a home with walls thick enough to keep out the wind, a floor that does not give way beneath your feet. There are carpets on the boards, a hearth that never goes cold, and a table always heavy with food. Your children run through the rooms without coughing, their cheeks bright and round, their shoes new each season. Your wife laughs, a laugh you have almost forgotten, and sings while she works. Even your dreams cannot imagine your own body without aches, but in the dream you carry them with the smugness of a man who knows he will live to see his grandchildren. Sometimes your dreams reach further. You picture leaving this city altogether, starting over in a new place where no one knows your debts or your failures. You imagine joining a caravan, seeing foreign lands, trading silks and spices, returning home with tales to dazzle the neighbors. Or perhaps you simply vanish into the forest, free from lords, taxes, markets, and the grind of survival. In these dreams, you have choices, you have freedom. The past does not cling to you like a second skin, but dawn comes as it always does, and the dreams unravel, thin and useless as last year's rags. The truth returns with the light, hard and cold and inevitable. You are not a wealthy merchant. Your stall leans in the mud. Your best bread will be stale by midday, and your debts are older than your children. The city is not waiting to welcome you, but to squeeze the last copper from your hands. The walls of your home cannot keep out the cold or the worry. Your wife's laughter is rare. Your children cough and wake with hunger, and every plan for escape is undone by the first bill, the first sickness, the first disappointment of the day. You once believed hard work would change your fate. You watched others rise, or so it seemed, and you wondered what secret they knew. Was it cleverness, luck, or some pact with the priests or the lords? You have tried every angle, haggling harder, rising earlier, praying louder, biting your tongue, giving more than you could spare. Each time, the city answered with another demand, another failure, another reminder that hope is the cruelest joke of all. Disillusionment settles in quietly, like dust in a corner. It is not a sharp break, but a slow fading of color, a dulling of the senses. You begin to expect less, to want less, to tell yourself that dreams are for children and fools. You mock your old ambitions to your friends in the market, making a show of indifference you do not truly feel. Perhaps next year I will sell silks to the king, you laugh, or fly away on the back of a goose. They laugh with you, because what else can you do? Sometimes you resent those who still dream. Your son, not yet broken by the years, still asks what you would do if you had money, if you could go anywhere. You give him some nonsense about adventure, about distant lands, about buying him a pony. He pretends to believe you, and you both let the lie hang in the air, brighter than any candle. But when he leaves, you feel the sting of shame, a shame born of loving him enough to want him to dream, and knowing enough to hope he never dreams too much. The city feeds on such disappointments. It takes the raw hope of youth and wears it down, day by day, into the dull resignation of survival. It is a place where ambition is dangerous, where success attracts suspicion, and failure is the only true constant. The rare stories of fortune, a merchant who made a clever deal, A craftsman who won a lord's favor are paraded like miracles, but they never touch your life except as reminders of your own limits. Still, you find moments to nurture a spark. You let your wife talk about her plans for the next season's market, though you both know the risks. You listen when your daughter speaks of a festival she hopes to attend, even as you count the coins in your head. Sometimes you even let yourself believe for an hour that tomorrow might be different, but the market always brings you back with its hard bargains and harder faces, its endless repetition of the same small struggles. In the end, dreams are not what sustain you. You wake, you work, you endure. Disillusionment is safer than hope, and expectation is another name for disappointment. Still, when the night is at its darkest and the city quiets for a moment, you close your eyes and dream one last time, not for riches or escape, but for one more day with your family, for enough bread to share, or a night's sleep without fear. In the medieval city, dreams are both poison and balm, a reminder of what you have lost and what you still refuse to let go. When you finally surrender to sleep, it is with the heaviness of a man who has learned there is no true rest. Your body aches, your mind whirls with unfinished lists, your heart stutters with the cold mathematics of survival. You lie in the straw with your family, crowded together in the darkness, and you listen to the city breathing, rats in the rafters, distant shouts, the scrape of boots in the alley. For a moment, you allow yourself to believe that morning will bring something different. But the medieval city is nothing if not consistent. You have lived long enough to know that tomorrow is always the same. The sun rises, pale and grudging, over the rooftops. You wake before it, as always, because the luxury of sleep belongs to those who have nothing to lose. You feel every bruise and pain left by yesterday, a fresh catalog of complaints in your bones. You roll from the bed, careful not to wake your wife or children, and begin the slow ritual of another day. Your first act is to check the door to make sure it is still barred, still holding the outside world at bay. Your second act is to count the coins, what is left, what is owed, what will never be enough. The house stirs. The children begin their coughing, their small arguments over who will fetch water, who will sweep, who will help at the stall. Your wife ties her hair back, face set in a familiar mask of determination. Breakfast, if it can be called that, is handed out. A few crusts, a mouthful of weak broth, the last apple sliced into careful pieces. There is no time for talk of dreams now, only the business of staying alive. You step out into the street, the air thick with yesterday's filth. The market waits, unchanged, indifferent to your hopes or fears. The other merchants nod, greet you with the same tired jokes, the same thin smiles. You arrange your wares, set out what little bread and cloth you have managed to keep. Every action is the same as it was the day before, the week before, the year before. You do not hope for surprises. You have learned that surprises are usually bad. The day follows its pattern. The first suspicious customers, the slow trickle of coins, the sharp words with rivals, the arrival of the tax collector. The guards swagger through, pockets open for bribes, eyes open for trouble. You bargain, you argue, you give away too much and receive too little. If you are lucky, you will not lose more than you gain. If you are not, you will borrow again, adding another layer to the mountain of debts that threatens to collapse at any moment. You watch your children learn the trade, their innocence eroding with every sale. You watch your wife barter with neighbors, her eyes always scanning for the next threat. You watch yourself, hands growing slower, hair growing thinner, patience growing shorter. You tell yourself you are not beaten, that there is dignity in endurance, but even dignity wears out after enough seasons. The city does not change for you. It does not notice you. Its walls are too thick, its rulers too distant, its crowds too many. Your joys and sorrows vanish like footprints in the market mud. Sometimes you think of the people who came before you, whose names are forgotten, whose struggles were just as pointless and just as necessary. You wonder if anyone will remember you when you are gone. You doubt it. As the sun sets, you pack your wares, count your losses, and trudge home through streets unchanged by your passing. Dinner is as thin as ever, the family gathered around a table that groans under the weight of hunger and worry. You talk about tomorrow, not as a promise, but as a threat. What if the weather turns? What if the fever returns? What if the landlord loses patience, or the guild raises the fees, or the river rises, or the guards decide your stall looks like trouble? You want to comfort your family, to say that tomorrow will be better, but you know better. Tomorrow will be the same hunger, the same fear, the same grim calculus. You will wake, you will work, you will endure. Sometimes endurance feels like a curse. Other times it is the only thing you have left. You find small mercies, a shared joke, a quiet moment, a rare day without loss. You let your children dream even when you cannot. You let your wife plan for a future that never comes, because hope, however thin, is the only rebellion you can still afford. You count these moments as victories, however fleeting. Night falls, and you lie in the darkness, listening to the world turn. You know you will rise again because you must. The medieval city does not care about your suffering or your hope. It endures, and so do you. This is your life, a cycle without end, a story without heroes, a world where tomorrow is always the same. And yet, for all its misery, you cling to it because it is yours. You have survived another day, and in this place, sometimes that is enough.